Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Hello.
Today we're jumping into source material you provided us, and it's specifically centered around a solo developer and their studio, a REPA studio.
That's right. Think of this as a deep dive shortcut, really. We're going to sift through these sources pretty quickly, pull out the most important insights, and give you a clear picture of the projects and the vision described in them.
Exactly. And your sources give us a look at, well, quite a range, everything from past utility projects to some pretty major current work and the tech behind it all.
Yeah.
So our mission today, basically introduce the studio, the developer, explore the specific projects that are mentioned, tell you where you can find more info, and maybe even touch on a fascinating little detail about how some audio was created.
Yeah, that bit's interesting. And what's really quite neat here is getting this kind of window into the world of a solo developer.
Right.
And just the sheer range of things one person can actually tackle. It kind of speaks to individual potential, I think.
Absolutely. So let's start right at the beginning then, based on the introduction from your source material. We learn about Kashayar, the solo developer, and their studio, which is called a REPA studio, sometimes also a REPA Par studio.
Yes, that's mentioned too. And the developer sets the stage, basically saying they want to introduce some past projects first before giving a glimpse into what's, currently underway.
Okay.
It immediately signals we're going to see a bit of variety.
Right. Sets expectations. Okay, let's dive into those past projects then. First up, something called DN Karapa.
Ah, yes, DN Karapa. So this is described as a console-based application.
Okay, command line?
Yeah, exactly. And it's built using the D programming language.
D. Okay, that's not one you hear about every day.
No, it's not as common as, say, C# or Python, but it's often chosen for its balance of high-level features and low-level control. Makes it pretty suitable for systems-level tools like this DNS changer.
Okay, so what does DN Karapa actually do?
It's designed to be a powerful but still straightforward DNS changer. The sources highlight a few key things.
Like what?
Well, you can easily change your system's DNS settings, obviously. You can save servers you use a lot for quick access.
Handy.
Yeah, ping different DNS servers to check their speed, how fast they respond, and just review your current setup. It's presented as a pretty practical utility, really.
Yeah, for anyone needing more control over their DNS.
Exactly.
And currently, it's Windows only, but the source says Linux support is being worked on.
That's right. Active work to add Linux support soon. So, yeah, expanding its horizons a bit.
Okay.
Cross-platform reach seems to be a bit of a theme, even for the earlier tools.
Interesting. Okay, speaking of tools, the source also mentions another project, SNShot FP.
Right, SNShot AP. This one sounds like maybe a smaller thing, but perhaps more experimental or for personal use initially.
Okay.
What's specific about it is that it uses the Excise screenshooter package.
SV screenshooter. That's part of the XFCE desktop environment, right? For screenshots.
Correct. And it's built specifically for use on Void Linux.
Void Linux, okay.
Yeah.
Another specific choice there. Known for being pretty minimal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a particular distribution. So this tool was like a tailored solution for taking screenshots in that specific environment using that existing utility.
Gotcha.
The developer does mention it's still early stages, plans for future enhancements. Seems like an example of maybe scratching a personal itch, exploring smaller scale problems.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that range already. A cross-platform DNS tool than this super specific Linux screenshot utility. So that covers some of the past and maybe smaller projects. Then the source kind of shifts gears pretty significantly, doesn't it? Talks about the main and more substantial projects currently in development.
Yeah, this is where the scope seems to broaden out quite a bit. The first major one mentioned is software called VibeDrive AP.
VibeDrive AP. And based on the source, what's the big idea behind that one?
So the vision for VibeDrive AP is presented as an application focused on advanced file management.
Advanced file management. Okay.
Yeah. While the sources don't list, every single feature, the core goal seems to be delivering a, quote, superior user experience combined with advanced functionalities.
Advanced file management and superior user experience.
Yeah.
What does that suggest to you based on what the source implies there?
Well, it definitely hints at going beyond the standard file explorer you get with Windows or Mac OS, right?
Yeah. Right.
Maybe it includes like much more powerful search or batch processing features or unique ways to visualize files, maybe even scripting for automating tasks. Who knows?
Could be anything, really.
Yeah, and the emphasis on superior user experience suggests a real focus on design, on usability, which honestly can be a big challenge for a solo developer tackling something as complex as a file manager.
Oh, absolutely. That makes sense. And the technology, what's VibeDrive AP built with?
So VimeDrive APU was built using C# and Avalonia UI.
Okay, C#. Versatile, widely used. Avalon UI, though, that's interesting. That's a cross-platform UI framework, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It lets you build applications that run natively on different operating systems, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, basically from a single code base.
Ah, so that fits with what we saw mentioned for Dean Carippa earlier, that desire for cross-platform reach.
Exactly. It's a pretty powerful choice if you want to reach a broad audience with a desktop app. Makes sense.
Okay, so that's VibeDrive AP. The second major project mentioned in the source is completely different. A game, Corner Existence AP.
Yeah, this one sounds quite fascinating, actually. It's described as a 2D platformer, but with a really strong emphasis on the storyline.
A narrative focus.
Huh.
The source highlights it's quite different from previous game attempts by the developer and involves significantly more effort. It combines elements like puzzle solving, platforming mechanics, even survival aspects, all woven into that central narrative.
Right, and the developer seems very focused on crafting a compelling story. They acknowledge that maybe the visual polish isn't, top tier yet, but they're actively working on improving design skills.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah, it's a pretty common approach in indie development, isn't it? Focus on your core strength, like the narrative here, while you develop other skills over time.
Makes sense. And the tech stack for this narrative platformer.
The game's being made using the Godot engine, specifically Godot Mono.
Godot Mono, okay. So that lets you use C# with Godot.
Exactly. C# for scripting, alongside Godot's own language, GDScript. Some parts apparently use GDScript too.
So flexibility there, leveraging C#, maybe for complex stuff, but still using GDScript where it's simpler.
Potentially, yeah. It gives the developer options. And it's interesting, C# popping up again in both major projects.
It is. So let's see. We've got utility tools like the DNS changer, a niche Linux utility for screenshots, an advanced file manager aiming for great UX, cross-platform, and a story-focused 2D game mixing genres. That's quite a diverse portfolio for one developer.
It really is. It shows a willingness to tackle different kinds of problems, different problem spaces, and use different technologies, too. D, C#, Godot.
Right. Now, for anyone listening who wants to, dig a bit deeper into Arepa Studio and these projects, your sources point to where they can find more information, right?
Yes. The primary hub seems to be a website. The sources mention it's open source itself, actually, hosted on GitHub pages.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, which is a nice touch. So that's where you'll find valuable info, links to the projects, news, that kind of thing.
Okay, the main website. And for the very latest updates.
For that, the sources recommend following their Telegram channel.
Telegram, okay.
Yeah, that seems to be the spot for real-time news and updates straight from the developer.
Got it.
And of course, the developer has a significant presence, lots of activity on GitHub itself. You can explore the code there for the open source projects.
Right, so GitHub, the website, and the Telegram channel. Those are the key places to follow along.
Exactly. Seems pretty clear.
Okay. And there was one final, slightly quirky detail mentioned in the sources about the audio.
Yeah, that little insight into the production process for their own stuff. The source notes that the audio for that specific introductory video they made was generated using the NoteBookLM tool.
NoteBookLM. Okay. An interesting choice for creating voiceovers.
Yeah. Just a little side note there.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the main insights, the most important bits from the source material you provided.
Sure. So we got an introduction to Kashayar and Arepa Studio, really highlighting the work of a solo developer.
Right.
We saw a range of projects, practical utilities like Dean Carippa, that DNS changer built with D, expanding to Linux.
And then more specific tools like SNShot AP, the screenshot utility for Void Linux, using that XESYN package.
And then the two major current projects, VibeDrive AP, the advanced file manager, uses C# and that cross-platform Avalonia UI, aiming for a superior UX.
Got it. And Corner of Existence AP, the story-focused 2D platformer. It's incorporating puzzle, survival, platforming elements, built with Godot Mono, C#, and GDScript.
And you can find more details, explore code, follow updates on GitHub, the Arepa Studio website, which is on GitHub pages, and their Telegram channel.
Right. And that little detail, the audio For their intro video, use NoteBookLM.
That's the summary.
And just to reiterate, all of this information came directly from the sources you shared with us.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating, I think, is just the sheer breadth of technical skills and the different types of projects shown by one person. You know, from system-level console apps and niche Linux tools all the way up to complex desktop UIs and narrative games. It's quite the range.
It really is.
Yeah.
So it leaves you with a thought, doesn't it? Considering this variety tackled by a solo developer, console tools, screenshot utilities, advanced file managers, narrative games, what does this kind of breadth suggest about the potential for individual creators in today's development landscape? And what kind of future projects might even emerge from such a diverse foundation like that? It's something to think about.
Indeed it is. Lots of possibilities.
Well, with that thought, we'll say goodbye for this deep dive.